you, all of you. Thank you so much for braving the elements today. It's just one of those days, right? But we're here, and I think we're in for a real treat with this opera, with Il Trovatore. Well, I think I'm just going to go right into it because there's a lot to cover. All right, an opera, 4 acts by Giuseppe Verdi. Premiered in Rome in 1853. Can you hear me back there? Okay?
Yeah.
All right, good. It was based on the Spanish play El Trovador from 1836 by Antonio Garcia Gutierrez. It was his most successful play, and one which Verdi scholar Julian Budden describes. I just had to put this in there, okay? So this is a highly respected musicologist. He describes the play as a high-flown, sprawling melodrama, flamboyantly deficient of the Aristotelian unities, packed with all manner of fantastic and bizarre incident. I loved that line. And really, what the heck is an Aristotelian unity? Okay? So that was the other thing. So I did look it up. All right, and I'm just going to tell you this. Rules for drama derived from a passage in Aristotle Poetics, and they are as follows. Unity of action. A play should have one action that it follows, with minimal subplots. Unity of time. It should occur over a period of no more than 24 hours. Unity of place. A play should exist in a single physical space and should not attempt to compress geography, nor should the stage represent more than one place. So that leaves out just about every opera we know, right? Okay, but what Budden does go on to say, it is a valuable reminder that the laws of musical theater do not have to conform to those of literary drama in order to produce a coherent masterpiece. And that's where the music comes in. Because actually, when we're going to go through this story, it can be challenging in this particular opera, because there's a whole backstory that occurs even before the curtain goes up that you need to know about for anything to make sense. All right, so it can be a little garbled, but it's the music. It's the music that makes the most sense and keeps us going. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so it has been criticized for its dramatic stupidity, that's not my word, and its musical conservatism. However, audiences don't really pay attention to the critics, and it's one of the most popular scores. And they help to sell an opera company's season as well. Enrico Caruso, the great Italian tenor, said that all the opera needed to succeed was 4 of the greatest singers in the world. And he spoke the truth. I mean, there are considerable vocal demands in this piece. But he didn't mention the visceral reaction that we, the audience, have to this music. The music is exciting. It just is. So even though the story is a bit of a mix-up, with Verdi's music, even if a person doesn't even know the plot, just comes in, they get it. They get it. The music is communicating on another level, on a different logic, a logic of the emotions, a logic of the heart, not the logic here. All right? And of course, this is one of the reasons we love opera, is for that. Okay. So this score perfectly expresses the extreme nature of the drama at hand. And the use of the melody really reflects the emotions running wild. This opera has it all. It has war, violence, forbidden love, bloodthirsty revenge. Oh, and did I mention violence? There's a lot happening in here. Okay, a little bit of background. Giuseppe Verdi, 1813 to 1901. He had a remarkable composing career spanning 60 years in the theater. He composed 28 operas, and about half of them are still in the repertoire, core of the repertoire. All right, now during this time, for 5 years, starting in about 1850, Verdi was on a roll. He wrote about 5 operas during this time. Rigoletto, Il Trovatore, La Traviata are still being heard today. So you are hearing Verdi like just writing it white hot speed. He was around in his late 30s, early 40s at this point. And so this was just an incredible time of his life. So now how he acquired a copy of the play is uncertain. But it seems that Giuseppina Straponi, the woman he was living with, had done the translation from the Spanish into the Italian. And there is a letter that she had written to him, quote, "Hurry up and give our Trovatore." So she had some stake in this. So when he was considering setting the play, Verdi turned to work with Salvatore Camerano, very famous librettist. Their correspondence began as early as January 1850. And this was one of the first times, I mean, maybe there was one other time, that he was actually working without a commission. He just felt so strongly about this play that he was just going to go ahead and compose it. Now, in his first letter to Camerano, he proposed El Trovador, the play, as a subject with two feminine roles. The first, the gypsy, a woman of unusual character after whom I want to name the opera. Because it really started with a different title. All right, even though he got the idea for the title eventually, from the play, but really he called the new opera La Zingara, the gypsy, because he was convinced that Azucena was really the main character. I mean, she really is the hinge point for all the action that's going to be taking place. She's very, very powerful, very compelling character. His letter emphasized, the bolder he, Camerano, is, the happier it will make me. And there were certain parts of the plot that were very important to him. He wanted to emphasize Leonora taking the veil. Also the importance of the Azucena-Manrico relationship. And he emphasized the more unusual and bizarre, the better. I'm going to keep repeating this because Camerano really came through. All right. Camerano dies in 1852. All right. He had just finished writing Di Quella Pira, the third act aria, Manrico's third act aria, just 8 days before his death. So Verdi meets a young poet from Naples, Leone Emanuele Bardare. He meets him Rome the 20th of December, 1852. Opera premieres in January 1853. You can imagine how they were working to get this together. And the other thing was that with Camerano not in the picture anymore, and Verdi is working with this young fellow, he was kind of able to kind of revise some of the things. And he had just an unerring sense of drama and timing, Verdi did. And so he was able to have a little more input working with this young poet. So in spite of all that, it was a popular success. All right, the forms, the music itself. This is kind of important when you're listening to this, especially if you're familiar with Rigoletto, which came out in 1851. Musically, this feels a little more conservative. This is kind of going back more to the bel canto style. And he has been criticized for that. And Verdi did want a vehicle for new types of music. He wanted freer forms, but Camerano really didn't give that to him. And it does seem, the music seems to be a bit of a return to that language of the early times, the musical language. But really, it's as if Verdi went back to these forms and perfected them. That he really never had to do that type of style again because it's really just the peak of this bel canto style. And you're going to be hearing some examples now and hearing things to be listening for. But what he does with these arias, with all these different forms, it's magnificent. It really is. Okay. So, the relationship between the drama on stage, the propulsive quality of the music, there's just a continuous sense of forward motion in this, sheer musical energy getting us through. And the other thing that was really interesting, Verdi did write to the soprano who was going to be playing Azucena in the premiere. And his words, quote, "It's the principal role, finer and more dramatic and more original than the other. If I were a prima donna, a fine thing that would be, I would always rather sing the part of the gypsy in Il Trovatore." He just loved this role. So when we're listening to the music, Azucena's melodies, especially the very first one, you could really tell the influence of gypsy tonalities in there. You'll be hearing that. Shorter phrases. Leonora, it's more of this aspiring, longer phrases. And you can really hear the difference between the two, but it's a two-woman show. I mean, it's wonderful. Opera enjoyed immense popularity, more of a popular success than critical one. But in the 3 years after its premiere, there were about 229 productions worldwide. It was the third opera presented at the new Metropolitan Opera House in New York in 1883. And from that first performance at the Met up until now, the company has given over 600 performances. The opera is originally set in northern Spain in the early 15th century during a time of civil war. Now, audiences of the Romantic era understood civil war. It was kind of a schizophrenia of society, and the type thing that psychologically could tear not just society apart, but individuals as well. So you kind of have to know that as the backdrop of this story. Now, the production we're going to see today, that takes place later on in the Peninsular War. Spain was fighting the forces of Napoleon. So more 1808 to 1814, okay? Slightly different, but then that way they were able to incorporate the paintings of Goya in this production. So, so it will be very interesting. Again, it's a slight difference, a subtle difference, because most people couldn't tell you the difference between the Spanish Civil War and the Napoleonic Wars. However, it's just good to know psychologically what was happening when this was being written. Okay, remember society and civil war and this splitting, because we're going to see tremendous schizoid tendencies in some of these characters. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. As I said, it seems to be such a jumbled up affair because a lot of things, there's so much of a backstory before the curtain even opens. So I'm going to tell you a little bit, just a few lines about this history here, all right? So at the time, the Civil War, Count of Urgel has raised a rebellion to press his claim to the throne, all right? He wants to be on the throne. Now, among his commanders is Manrico, a gypsy from the mountains who has become a famous knight. The leader of the royal forces, if people want to keep their power, is Count di Luna. So Manrico has risked his life to come to the royal palace of Aljaferia, site of the court of Aragon, because he is in love with Leonora. So that's the backstory. Now, the real backstory that they're going to tell you in the opera. The old Count de Luna, he's been dead for a while, all right, had two sons of nearly the same age. One night, they were still infants, they were very young and asleep. An old gypsy woman sneaked into the chamber and was leaning over the cradle of the younger one, the younger child, Garcia. She was instantly driven away. However, the child became very sick after that. And it was believed that she bewitched the child, that put a curse on the child. So they chased her down, apprehended her, and burned her alive at the stake. All right. Her daughter, Azucena, she was a young gypsy woman at that time with a baby of her own. She was witness to the death of her mother. She swore to avenge. And during the following night, she went to the castle. She snatched that younger child of the Count de Luna from its cradle, hurried back to the scene of the execution, intending to throw the baby boy into the flames that were still going on. It was still quite hot, right? Okay, almost bereft of her senses, she throws her own child in by mistake. All right? And thus preserved the baby that was destined to grow up into a tenor with a voice high enough to sing Di Quella Piera. She had a good operatic instinct there. Okay, so she's thwarted in her vengeance, but she's not to be baffled. With the infant Count in her arms, she runs back. She doesn't tell anybody about this, and raises him, calls him Manrico, and raises him as her own son. But always with the thought that through him, she would get revenge on the family. So when the opera opens, Manrico has grown up. She has grown old, but is still obsessed with revenge. The old Count has died, leaving the elder son, the new Count di Luna, the sole heir. But for some reason, both of them always doubted the death of the younger brother. There's no overture. There's no prelude, as there was in Rigoletto. The first sound we hear is a rumble from the timpani. 3 rumbles, each louder than the last. Now, remember, in 1853, there was no conductor to take his or her place in front of the orchestra. There was no orchestra pit. The orchestra was all the same level. There was no electricity. They were using candles, so you couldn't dim the lights to tell the audience to come back. So how are you going to get the audience to stop talking the first 100 measures of your prelude, right? So Rossini had done something like this in one of his operas earlier, and he used a snare drum, and that kind of got everybody's attention to get them to stop chattering and sit and listen. So this was probably, kind of a little tip of the hat to Rossini, and he did the same thing with the timpani. And they increase in intensity, and actually, dramatically, they establish quite an atmosphere of suspense and menace. And we're going to go right into this now. We're going to go right into this now. Okay. While my husband is doing this, all right, look at this. Electric tape over so I can't hit the wrong button. We have different gifts. Okay, it's reading the disc. This is good. I can start it?
Oh, it'll start on its own.
It'll start, okay.
There you go.
First drum roll. Nighttime, we're in the guard room in the castle of Count di Luna. Ferrando, the captain of the guards, orders his men to keep watch. Count di Luna is wandering restlessly beneath the windows of Leonora, lady-in-waiting to the princess. Di Luna loves Leonora, of course he does, and is jealous of his successful rival, the troubadour Manrico. All right, they are both in love with the same woman. 2 brothers. So weary of the watch, the soldiers ask Ferrando just to tell them the story of the Count's brother. Tell them the story of the stolen child. Tell them the story. A great melody. So in order to keep the guards awake, Ferrando narrates the history of the Count and gives the backstory. Okay? Gypsy wrongfully accused. I'm saying it again just for people, if this is your first time, you just sort of need to hear it a couple of times to just make sense of it. Okay, Gypsy wrongfully accused of having bewitched the youngest of the Di Luna children. Child fell sick. Gypsy was burnt alive as a witch. She was protesting she was innocent the whole time. Dying, she commanded her daughter, Azucena, to avenge her, which she did by abducting the baby. And although, this is a little gruesome, although the burnt bones of a child were found in the ashes, the father refused to believe in his son's death. Dying, he commanded his firstborn, the new Count di Luna, to seek Azucena. So now we're hearing Ferrando narrating the history. Abietta Zingara sat there, a gypsy. This isn't even a main role. Is your bel canto? Okay. So it's a great part. I mean, really, this is a supporting role. And look at the wonderful music he gets to sing. You know, it's pretty exciting. All right. So this is a gruesome ballad. And there were comments of the horror-stricken chorus going on throughout, and that pretty much dominates the opening of the opera. And it's a very, very effective scene. All right, scene 2, we're in the garden in the palace. And Leonora confesses her love for Manrico to her confidant, her maid Inez. Leonora loves an unknown but valiant knight, and lately he had been in a tournament, he won all the contests, and he was crowned victor by her hand. And she knows that he loves her because he comes and sings under her window. All right, so she describes this love. How I Met the Troubadour. Okay, so Inez tries to talk her out of it. The sensible maid always tries to bring some sort of reason into the picture in these operas, right? The sensible maid, and so much grief would have been avoided if she listened to her, but she doesn't. And instead, Leonora talks about the love that words can barely describe. But these are things just to be listening to, especially if this is your first time hearing this opera. It's just kind of nice to know, something to hook into, because it's just this tsunami of music coming at you, and how do you make sense of this? So these are just some little things to be listening for. That's quite brilliant. That really is. Okay, so Leonora Inez, go back into the palace. Count de Luna, who's been lurking about, a little stalking going on. All right, just as he enters, he hears the voice of the troubadour, accompanied on a lute, singing a romanza. So what you're going to hear now is the Count saying, Il Trovatore, he hears him, and then we hear the Trovatore's song. He's kind of in the distance. So many to do, so I have to cut some of these short. Okay, Leonora hears this, runs out of the castle, mistaking the count for the troubadour. She starts running towards him. But then the moon comes out. All right, she sees the figure of a masked man, and oh, that's him. All right, and runs to her lover, runs to the troubadour. And he also discloses his identity as Manrico, who as one of the rebels has been condemned to death. All right, so the Count challenges Manrico to a duel. The men draw their swords. Leonora tries to intervene but can't stop them from fighting. So now we're going to hear De Luna first saying, "My jealous love burns, you have condemned him." Basically, I'm going to kill him. And so first you'll hear that, and then a trio comes in. Okay, so you get the idea. So that's what ends the first act. Okay, Act 2, we're in the gypsies' camp. Azucena is by the fire, and Manrico is wounded lying on a mattress. All right, and the act begins with one of the most beloved operatic choruses, the anvil chorus. And I just want to give you a word about anvils, all right? 1853 is definitely their operatic debut. And gypsies were traditionally metal workers. So, this was very, very appropriate, basic requirement for that kind of work. 16 years later, Wagner, always needing to be bigger and better in Das Rheingold, demanded 18 anvils on Das Rheingold. And not just any old anvils, they all had to be tuned to specific pitches, to play specific pitches. All right, but getting back to this, audiences just we all love this, the catchiness of this. It was also Sir Arthur Sullivan's model for the Pirates chorus in Pirates of Penzance. Which is probably better known as the tune for Hail, Hail, the Gang's All Here. This little intro. Very enjoyable. All right, so chorus is followed then immediately with Azucena's aria. And remember, the daughter of the gypsy burned by the Count and is still haunted by her duty. And she sings her version and the memories and the hatred that has been eating away at her. It talks about her mother's death. So this first one, "The Flames Are Roaring," is her first aria. Listen this first. Listen to the mastery that Verdi has. I mean, we're just listening to this now, totally disembodied. We're not seeing costumes. We're not seeing the characters. Right away, we have a picture of Leonora and we have a picture of Azucena. Two totally, totally different sounds of music there. And I mean, you hear, kind of that gypsy, the modal thing that he does in there, and it's really quite moving when you hear this. I mean, the whole thing is to have ambiguity in all of this. There's no black and white. All right, she keeps going. Another aria, and they dragged her in bonds, where she starts describing the scene. Going to keep going. This is all very dramatic. Okay, and she tells Manrico at the end, "Avenge thou me. Avenge me." All right, so Manrico thinks, well, wait a minute, am I really her son? After hearing all this, he starts, and she's saying, oh, come on, I've been taking care of you when you were on the battlefield wounded. Didn't I come and save you? And I nursed you back to health. All right. She asked him why he spared the Count's life in that duel that went on. We now found out that he got the better of the Count, but he didn't kill him. And so he replies, first in a very martial type of air, very bravado. Okay, so that's all very dramatic and wonderful. But at the end, he goes to a pianissimo. He is about to kill the Count. And it's almost as if a voice from heaven stays his arm, that he couldn't do it. And it's so dramatic, and it's just quite wonderful because it's said in a very small, still voice. So, all right, so that has happened. Now, a messenger comes. Manrico has to take command of the forces defending the stronghold, but more importantly, he reports that Leonora, who believes Manrico is dead, is about to become a nun, about to take the veil. All right, I'm going to skip over this. Azucena tries to prevent him from leaving, but Manrico says, no, I have to go stop her from becoming a nun. All right, so now the scene changes to the cloister of the convent. It's nighttime. The Count and his followers, led by Ferrando, advance very cautiously. And it's the Count's plan, he also believes Manrico is dead, plan to carry off Leonora before she becomes a nun. And he sings of his love for her. And actually, this is regarded as one of the most beautiful baritone solos in Italian opera. Okay, just a minute. Beautiful. You're really going to enjoy this. All right, then we have an example. The men are hiding in the shadows. And for people hiding, they really go on for quite a long time. But, all right. And also, with them hiding, Count di Luna sings more, about the fatal hour impending. But note some of the lyrics. Listen to this. In vain a rival god opposes my love. Not even a god, O woman, is able to steal you from me. Okay, now you know you can't be saying that in opera and not have something bad happen. Really. He's saying, okay, God, she's not going to be yours. Okay, so there he is defying the divine, saying, I'm going to get this woman. All right, now the chorus of nuns is heard. Okay, Leonora with Inez and her ladies come upon the scene. The nuns' chorus is singing. All right, with De Luna and the men hiding. So you're going to hear the nuns' chorus welcoming daughter of Eve. Okay, De Luna is repeating, Leonora's about to be his, cursing God, you can't have her. And the men are hiding, saying we have to have courage. So all of this is going on now. The nuns. Just wonderful how all this is woven together, isn't it? Okay, so they're about to go into the convent and the Count makes his move. But before he can kidnap Leonora, another figure comes, and it's Manrico with his followers, and the Count is foiled. Okay, Leonora seeing Manrico, she thought he was dead. All right, and just, I'm going to skip over this one. But anyway, she just, can I believe my eyes? Okay, then there's the finale. Okay, there's a trio for Leonora, Manrico, Count de Luna, and then there's the chorus. All right, so the nuns are singing, Heaven, that you have trusted, have mercy on you. Manrico, God confounds the wicked. De Luna, I'm going to kill you. And Leonora, my heart is transported, oh ecstasy. Am I in heaven seeing you? And, things like that. All right, so now, next act. De Luna and his army are at the fortress where Manrico has taken refuge with Leonora. There's a wonderful chorus for Ferrando and the soldiers as they wait for the battle. The sword will be bathed in blood. Okay. Ferrando drags in Azucena. She's been wandering around on the outside, and they capture her. And questioned, basically, she just sings, I'm just a poor woman. I never complain. I'm minding my own business, just walking around. Okay. She hears De Luna's name. Her reactions arouse suspicion. Ferrando recognizes her as the gypsy. And Azucena cries out to her son Manrico to rescue her. Count realizes that now he has a way to flush Manrico out of the fortress. And he orders his men to build a fire and burn Azucena before the walls. Okay. Inside, it keeps going like this. Inside the castle, Manrico and Leonora are preparing to be married. She's very frightened. The battle is imminent. Manrico's forces are outnumbered, and he assures her of his love. And they sing a duet together about sublime love even in the face of death. Okay, Manrico takes Leonora's hand to lead her to the altar of the chapel. And you actually hear an organ, which, as a church musician myself, I'm wondering, what is an organist doing there in his fortress, but that's something else. All right, okay, word rushes in. Azucena is about to be burned to death. You can see the glow of flames out through the windows of the castle. Dropping the hand of his bride, Manrico draws his sword, and he sings the famous aria, Di quella pira l'orrendo foco, the horrid flames of that pira. The very last one, I'm just going to go right because of time. I'm going to go to the climax that contains the famous high C, which, by the way, Verdi never wrote. It is not in the score. A tenor decided to add it during one of the performances. Well, it ended up being so popular, now pretty much every tenor has to do it. So you have that ending.
How like a tenor.
So true. Okay, so basically what he's saying there, that last line, or all else failing, I will die with you. Okay, so Manrico has failed to free Azucena, so they're both now waiting execution. All right, and they sing together. All right, I'm going really fast. I'm going really fast now. So you have, Leonore comes up with a plot, and she offers herself to Count de Luna in exchange for Manrico's life. All right, what he doesn't know, he finally agrees to it, but what he doesn't know, she's going to take the poison in her ring, and when Manrico is free, she will die, and then at least Manrico is free. Okay, so she's very excited, he's going to live, all right, we have that. Then, you have to hear this trio, okay? So basically what happens, she tells Manrico that he's free to leave, but she's going to stay. Manrico, being the fickle thing that he is, he starts yelling at her, thinking she's unfaithful, that she's running off with the Count. I mean, really? And then finally he realizes that she's dying, all right, and he's sorry. Gee. Okay, so in this trio, all right, she's dying. Manrico is sorry. Okay, De Luna comes in. He sees that he's been deceived. I'm going to kill him 100 times. So. Okay. He orders Manrico beheaded at once. The finale, what happens? He's beheaded, off stage. It's over, claims De Luna. But then Azucena says, he was your brother. And Count O'Hara, and she screams, you are avenged. And he says, but yet I still live. Yet. And that's basically how it ends. So there's an ambiguity there because, throughout the opera, Azucena has seemed devoted to Manrico. But it's almost as if she's been leading him to this end the entire time. It's now that he's beheaded that she finally seems triumphant. Okay. So I just wanted to say about this particular production that we're going to see today. Count de Luna is played by Vorostovsky, Dmitri, and we all love him. Now, he announced a few months ago that he has a brain tumor. And so, in fact, when they had the first performance this past Friday, the audience actually cheered when he came out on stage, and he broke character and smiled at the audience, okay? He was supposed to do 10 performances. He is only doing 3, this being his last one, and he's going back to London to continue his treatment for the brain tumor, and hopefully we'll be back for the last few performances. But I just wanted to let you know that, because this, and you may see the audience having a very strong reaction to him, and that's the reason. So anyway, I ended on time. Thank you all very much.